Today, we're going to be talking about the funding opportunity announcement for the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, or the bill, Silicon Solar Manufacturing and Dual-Use Photovoltaics Incubator. And a little bit about my company and myself. We've been around for a while. We're SBA certified woman-owned small business. We provide consulting systems, consulting for the small companies, specifically the startups. We have a bunch of knowledge with the SBIR STTR program, and we also can support with proposal writing, commercialization strategies, funding opportunities. So that's one of the reasons why we're here. I've been working with the UACI for a long time now. For today, we're going to be reviewing the funding opportunity announcement. We're going to just touch base on the two topics and a little bit of general information, and we'll go over the requirements for the concept paper and then do a bit of question and answers at the end. But I'm happy to be interrupted if you have a question as we move forward. So if you've already reviewed the announcement, then you know that the concept paper is going to be due on September 27. And you will not be able to submit a full application if you have not submitted a concept paper. And if it's not an eligible concept paper, or your company is not eligible, they'll let you know. Otherwise, you will be able to, with an approved concept paper, submit a full application. The ERE is the one that will perform your eligibility, and you will have to submit your application through the ERE exchange. You will need to be registered at the SAM. Once you're registered in SAM, you get a unique entity identifier, and you're going to need that. And then when you apply through the ERE, you're going to get a control number, and keep that handy because you're going to need that to name each of the files for your application. So basically, the agency with this FOA is the Department of Energy, specifically the Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy, which is affectionately called the ERE, and also the Solar Energy Technologies Office, or SETO, which provides research and development funds to demonstrate innovative domestic manufacturing for silicon solar supply chain. I've got a typo there. And then to develop innovative new products for dual-use photovoltaics. And those are the two topics that we'll be discussing today. They're planning on funding $45 million over 3 years. And the eligible applicants have to be for-profit entities. They have to be the prime recipients of the funds. And the Department of Energy and the Nuclear National Associations in the federal research centers, they're eligible to apply, but only as a sub-recipient. And they can only have up to 20% of the cost. Then all the work must be performed in the United States. There's very few exceptions to that. And the applications will be only new applications. So you can't resubmit something to this FOA. The type of funding mechanism is a cooperative agreement, because the prime company that's applying for this will have some requirements and responsibilities, such as cost sharing. So the purpose and the key benefits and the metrics being evaluated for these applications have to be around reducing energy use and the carbon footprint, improved processes for manufacturing of solar modules. It has to have a productivity enhancement over current photovoltaic power output sources. And you have to reduce the cost of the modules and the system hardware. And one of the primary purposes also is to reduce the supply chain vulnerabilities. Here are the two topics. And this is very high level bullet summary. Okay, so you need to go to the FOA and read all the details about what they are. But basically, the differences between these two is topic one is for pilot demonstration. How do we accelerate with some of your technology? How do you accelerate the manufacturing? How does your innovation do that? And how does it improve directly or indirectly the supply chain for those silicon solar modules? On the other hand, the topic number two has to do with dual use. So you're going to do research and development on how to make things better, but it also has to fit in one of the sectors. And we'll go a little bit more into those. I just outlined them here briefly, like agricultural, buildings, floating, photovoltaics, and vehicles. When I'm not going to go into cost sharing and funding, but this is just a brief summary, and you'll find this again in the FOA of what the DOE is expecting to do. So for topic one, they're going to give out more money, but there's less awards. But also with more money comes more responsibility. You're going to have to do a cost share of 75%. With the dual use one, they'll give you less money, but then there's only a 20% cost share. Okay, so the motivation for this particular FOA is around the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, or the bill. So bill aims at modernizing and upgrading our current infrastructure. And how do we do that? We're looking to enhance the U.S. competitiveness. We want to create more jobs. Everybody's talking about the climate crisis. How, with our technologies, can we reduce the effect of the climate on our environment and ensure that we have a strong economic environment? And also now, how do we benefit those disadvantaged communities? They're looking, the bill as a whole is going to be spending about $62 billion. So this is just one of the programs under that. And that would go to the U.S. Department of Energy. And the goal is by 2035 to achieve zero carbon electricity systems, and by 2050 to have net zero emissions economy. And for this particular one, they're looking at investing $45 million over 3 years so that we have new photovoltaic technologies. And the focus is to lower manufacturability costs and to have higher quality solar systems. So again, if we look at the purpose of this particular FOA, we want to, one of the motivations have to do with during COVID, as everybody remembers, everything shut down. So we realized that we had some vulnerability in our supply chains because it took so long for things to start rolling back. And as a country, we don't want to experience that dependence on other countries, especially those that are not our allies. And when it came to the photovoltaic and energy industry, we found that there was a very big vulnerability. So specifically for this FOA, we're looking at, through the topic one, is how do we lessen our dependence on these international supply chain issues. And to do so, we need to diversify our own supply chains and produce our own material and innovations and technologies. And by doing so, we're going to be delivering more jobs. We're going to help the economy grow. We're going to reduce our dependence on other countries. And at the same time, if we produce things here, instead of buying things to come to us, we're going to be able to export more. And we'll have a more reliable domestic supply chain. But as part of this, we also have a duty to help our disadvantaged communities and our tribal nations. So how do we advance equity and engage our underserved communities and our represented groups through this project? And so you'll see from the beginning on the concept paper, it is going to be a requirement for you to specify how you're going to be doing your part to help advance energy and equity in energy. So there's going to be 3 core objectives to invest on the projects that will continue to reduce costs and enhance our supply chain domestically, but also we're going to want to have dual use photovoltaic applications. And the 4 that this particular FOA is focusing on is agricultural photovoltaics, or APVs, building integrated PVs into our homes or the commercial infrastructure buildings. How about floating photovoltaics, or photovoltaics, they call them the FPVs, as well as integrated photovoltaics into our vehicles. And then the 3rd one that I just mentioned earlier is to deliver equitable, clean energy that will have that net zero emissions by 2050. And to do so, is how do we collaborate as a for-profit with other diverse entities like tribal communities, or maybe minority serving institutions like university or the HBCUs and other minority institutions and businesses. How are we doing with time? Okay, so again, here's a little bit more description about the topic 1, which aims at having a pilot demonstration. This one, how with your innovation do you directly or indirectly participate in the silicon solar module supply chain? For instance, silicon production, silicon ingot and wafering, new solar cell types, glass processes and formulations and coatings, transparent or flexible backsheets, and other module components. Or do you have equipment or consumables that are used during the manufacturing of any of the above? And then do you have existing expertise that could be applied so that you can scale under a controlled environment? And all this is subject to review from the bipartisan infrastructure law. So you've got to understand that. In addition, there are all of these are very well outlined in the FOA. On the other hand, the dual use PV incubator, which is the topic number 2, that's looking at doing R&D of existing domestically made products, and how do we use them for agrivoltaics, buildings, floating, and integrated photovoltaics. And in that case, we're looking at application-specific hardware such as PV cells, modules, mounting, and other maybe dedicated components. And here, the objective is to accelerate the domestic development so that we do this in the United States by American folks. And at the same time, help with the electrification and decarbonization, because we've got those goals for 2035 and 2050. And here are just some illustrations. I took these out also from the FOA, but it gives you an idea of a few applications of the agrivoltaics. You could use them for shade for the animals and the plants, but at the same time generate energy and reduce the dependence of the farms, especially the rural ones, in the grid, and maybe give back to the grid. And then buildings, it could be your homes, or it could be parking lots, it could be commercial buildings, and how would you be able to integrate it? And then these are floating. I've seen different examples of floating. They could be on the ocean, they could be on the rivers, they could be on the lakes. There's many applications. How would your innovation participate in this? And then can we add this PV or photovoltaics on top of vehicles or other ways of doing it? And so here they've got the ground vehicles. I'd be curious. They didn't have a picture to discuss air vehicles, but I'd be curious if an application, an air vehicle would qualify too. And this is where things start getting different from how things used to be done before, which is the community benefits. How will you contribute to the benefits of the community and have what they call that energy equity? And so generating diverse, equitable, inclusive, and accessible workplaces, clean and equitable energy, advancing the concept of diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility through the DEIA. How are you going to be contributing to the energy equity, and how are you going to be investing back into Americans' workforce? And keep in mind, you must include a community benefits plan in your application. And it's the above 3 examples. And I'll clean that duplication there too.
Can I just jump in real quick for a minute,
Yes,
Sonia?
sure.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that when you were sharing each of the 4 areas under topic 2, I just wanted to quickly mention that underneath, starting in page 19 of the FOA, if you're curious about, your specific technology, I would encourage you just to kind of check out those sections of the FOA, because they do a great job of talking about what they're particularly interested in, what they're not interested in. So it's a great chance to just kind of do a quick double check to see if this is worth your time. And then if happy to discuss with you following that, any thoughts you have on that or discussion on that. And then I also wanted to share that Ed Weinberg had shared a question in the chat. Yeah, just about, USDA being a partner for agrivoltaic accelerated development. I'm not sure that they're not. They probably have, sometimes the USDA, can be so siloed into their departments that USDA might have their own activities going on, but do you have any feedback on that, Sonia?
Yeah, Ed, what I would encourage you to do, because USDA does a lot of stuff in at least the agricultural and the photovoltaic and other things. And they have the SBIR, which has topics that might apply here, as does the DOE SBIR during the release too. So be looking out for that, because it could complement what you are looking at responding. But what I would encourage you to do is look at what USDA has funded in the past, identify who the program managers are, and reach to them, because I believe USDA partners with some universities, and they do have research assigned areas. Like I believe they have one in Yuma, Arizona. And I've seen small business partner with some of these USDA experimental sites. So they might, I don't know yet, but they might qualify as one of those sub-awardees, right? So I would encourage you to do a little bit more exploration and reach out, because if they could be a partner in your program, and it increases your likelihood of achieving success and meeting your objectives, and they could provide some cost sharing, by all means do it. So I've seen them fund things of similar nature. So I just don't know specifically who. So doing a little bit more homework would help. Does that answer your question, Ed? And then you have another one, agriculture, consider part of agriculture example. Again, that would be a good question for both DOE and USDA, right? Because if you have a good idea and application, I think that the floating PVs might be applied to improve fish farming, for instance. I don't know exactly how, but maybe, right? They could also be used to help maybe with algae for oil and energy production. So I think it's just, what is your innovation? What's the dual use and the public benefit, right? And so why not? It's just like asking the question and validating that would be a good application and finding the right partners. I think the University of Arizona also has something in Yuma, and there is some fish farming, I believe, in Arizona, but there's fish farming all over the country as well. Okay. And so we went through this. This is just another illustration about the estimated funding and the cost sharing and the duration. So they're both up to 36 months. And again, one has a lot less money, but more awards and less cost sharing requirements. So for eligibility, you must be a domestic entity. The prime contractor must be also for profit. The sub-recipients don't need to be for profit, but they have to also be part of the cost sharing. And here maybe is where you can get creative to satisfy the community benefits. Maybe one of the sub-awardees or sub-recipients can be a minority institution, for example, or state or federal entities that are associated with the underserved. Foreign entities, I have not seen them accept one, but I have not been in this program long enough. So I would get that cleared with ERE before you submit your proposal and get it in writing. Most likely you would not get approved. And then other eligibility, it could be both incorporated or unincorporated consortia. And compliance, you have to follow the instructions and the form and content being asked, all the page limits. You have to submit through the ERA exchange. You have to use the control number. Nothing will be accepted past due dates. I believe the submit button goes away, so you can't press submit if you're late. It's strongly encouraged. I always try to be 2-3 days in advance, just in case of Murphy's Law creeping up. Your server goes down, or the DOE server goes down, or something, or they're overloaded, then it becomes your problem, not theirs. So, and don't forget that you can't submit a full application without that concept paper. These are more details about your submission. They will only accept PDF files, so you could use Google Docs or Word doc, but make sure that you create it into a PDF and look at what the PDF looks like before you submit, because sometimes the figures or the things don't PDF well. So I've made that mistake in the past before. And I see there's a question from Ed. Has the DOE FOA created a teaming partner list? I have not seen it, but I think Amanda has.
Yeah, and I just put in the chat that we are working with our fellow power connectors, which will be Entrepreneur Futures Network and ADL, which is the which are our two power connectors that the three of us are working jointly on supporting this effort. And so we're going to be creating a teaming partner list that will be hosted on empowerinnovation.net. You can register there and keep up with that, but we'll make sure and get that information out. We're also working on a teaming event and hope to have that out soon.
Awesome. Thank you. So they emphasize to write it in English. I don't know why anybody would write an application for a federal organization not written in English, but I put it in there. Size, normal standard size paper, 1-inch margins max. And then Calibri typeface 10 point is okay. You have to use your control number specifically for the naming convention of your files. You have to put page numbers on every single page on the footer. Don't exceed page counts. They are outlined on the FOA for the concept paper as well as for your full application. I put in there the support email address. So the FOA has more information on it. And like Amanda mentioned, there's 3 power connectors helping with educational services for the application, which is the ADL Ventures Entrepreneur Futures Network and the UACI, which is who I'm working with. And if you have files that are over 50 megabytes in size, you can break it up. And so it would just be file name number 1, file name number 2, so that you could submit something that's bigger than 50 megs. So going into the concept paper, this comes right out of the FOA. I summarize the bullets. On the cover page, it's just the first page. It's like a title page. So that's your project, your topic, technical business people, your technology descriptions up to 4 pages. We'll go into this in a bit. And again, your community benefits plan, you're going to have to summarize it into 1 page. Basically, those 3 objectives we talked about before. And anything else like the qualifications of your team can be an addendum up to 2 pages. Ed, we can help during office hours, and possibly we could look at what it looks like and give you some feedback. We will not write the concept papers for you, and we will not redline it or edit it, but we can give you some feedback. Is that right, Amanda?
Yeah, and exactly. And so we will be here to be able to provide support, and we can do some one-on-one support as long as we're keeping within those guidelines of not redlining or doing any writing for you. But and I know that the other power connectors are working on getting their events out as quick as they can. They haven't posted anything yet, but I will be sure to keep everybody in the loop of anything that new that comes out.
All right, thank you. So here's just, and again, I bulletize what goes on the cover page. It's on the FOA. Make sure you have a project title. You tell them what is your topic area and both your technical and business contact information. All your team members who you're working with, where you're going to be doing your work. It could be multiple locations, especially if you're working with other organizations. And if you have confidentiality statements, they go on the first page. This is the meat of your project. This is going to be outlining what's your innovation, what are you proposing to do, what's going to be your performance level, how does it compare against the state of the art, and what is that state of the art? What's its shortcomings, limitations, challenges? Because you have a technology. Why would anybody want to use it? So you've got to understand, here's what the current solution, and this is why it's not good enough, right? And then how is your proposed technology going to overcome the limitations of the current solutions? What's the potential impact? What is it going to be doing for the economy, for the jobs, for cost reduction, for the emissions, for the climate? Whatever that impact is, this is an opportunity to talk about it and if possible, quantify it. Where are you going to be doing that impact? Where are you going to be working? and how does that location support the outcome and the success of your project. And then you need to specify what are going to be the technical risks and issues and how you're going to overcome them. Keep in mind, this is just 4 pages. When you go into the full proposal, you'll have more. But one recommendation I would give you is create a template that has these sections so that you can start outlining what it is that you want to say. Are you going to use some images and how you're going to use them? So start outlining the concept paper technology description with these subheadings in mind. And then similarly, the community benefits plan is just 1 page. And those 3 objectives have to be outlined and describe what is going to be your approach to address each one of these. And for more information on ideas about this, you can read the details on section 5, but Appendix F has a bunch of information. And what I try to do, because sometimes there was a lot in it, wouldn't fit here, would be I just randomly chose, well, kind of randomly, I wanted them to fit in a little bit nicely. So, because some of these examples were really long and they wouldn't fit. So maybe I cut and paste a little bit, but I wanted to give you an idea just of examples. You know, who are for the DEIA requirement, who are you working with? Are you working with the MSIs? Are you addressing the climate change and reducing some of that? Do you have anti-bias in education training? Are you going to be providing that for your teams and mentoring disadvantaged individuals, bringing them as part of your team? Are you going to be executing your project maybe in a disadvantaged community? Are you working with an organization in a tribal nation, for instance? Are you recognizing, do you have a way to recognize those folks that go over and above? So different things like this is one way of addressing, and there's a whole bunch more, by the way, on the FOA. I just picked some so that we have something to talk about. Yes, minority serving institution. It's a mouthful for me. And then with energy equity, are you having a technology that's going to be used for diverse geographically or demographic communities? Are you going to be creating a plan to engage different stakeholders? And how are you going to go about doing it? And then are you going to be creating literature after you're done? And then, of course, the workplace and the workforce. And how are you going to outline and overcome challenges, opportunities to commercialize your technology across the United States? And again, creating literature reviews about the implications on the workforce, on your technology, how you're going to be saving money and improving specific industries. And then in the addendum, if you have, here's where you get to brag about the qualifications of your team and your expertise and the facilities, and you could add graphs and charts to supplement, but again, you only have 2 pages. And we're almost at the end. So this is, I wanted to summarize how they're going to review your paper, because if they feel that you're not eligible, this is the kind of things that you're going to be judged. So you have to clearly describe the proposed technology. How is it unique and innovative? How does it overcome the limitations of the state of the art? Have you identified your risks and challenges? Because clearly everybody is going to have technology risks, not going to be, otherwise you wouldn't be doing this, right? You have to have some risk. Innovation is not easy. Otherwise, it would have been already done. And sometimes the risks have to do with regulatory, financial, schedule, for instance, people, location. But in addition to recognizing that you have these risks and you can categorize them, maybe low, medium, high, but how are you going to mitigate them, especially those that are high and medium? And why is this money impactful? If you are not eligible, they'll let you know. Unfortunately, if you are eligible, you won't hear. So a lot of the times during office hours, they're always calling us and saying, should I submit? I haven't heard. And you could hear from them really late in the process. So I suggest you start working on your submission. Start doing the basics, because you still have to do this for your concept paper. Who's your team? Create a proposal plan, have a master outline, create a schedule. Make sure you include the concept paper, September 27th, and then start having maybe weekly proposal team meetings to review where you are. And I always recommend having at least one interim proposal review, and then of course a red team review with folks that are unbiased. Yeah, that's right. If you don't hear anything, you're probably going to be okay. But I can't tell you whether you should or should not submit. But I can tell you is be prepared to submit. If you believe in your idea, you need to do it, right? So, and here's another reason why, right? We've discussed SBIR. We know that DOE is going to be putting an SBIR release 2 that might have applicability to some of the stuff you've done. Yes, it is a phase 1, but if you scope it in such a way that some of the feasibility, if you're doing some R&D, could be used for a DOE phase 1 if you don't win, right? Or maybe DOD. You could start identifying dual use in the military. You can start finding dual use with USDA. EPA, believe it or not, might have some projects. So look around, because what you do here, you could, quote unquote, reuse for another agency. So don't consider the work not usable. You could find other opportunities. So my advice is keep moving forward until you hear otherwise. And start as early as possible. If you haven't started yet, start now. We have office hours next week, I think, right, Amanda?
Yes, we have office hours. Yep.
Yeah. And then read the solicitation completely. Reach out if you have questions. The DOE has created the power connectors to support you. And if we don't have answers, maybe we know someone who does, or we can direct you to someone else who might also know. And that's all I have.